I was trying to hide it. The f***'s this?
Shaun Wright-Phillips, a name synonymous with flair, speed, and the golden era of English football.
There's certain things with football I don't think you can ever teach, and that's just...
Who was your inspiration?
Mum played a major role in me and my brother being successful. You bunk school, and then you get home, your mum's home, and then she's going mad, and then she's like, well, it means you could have tidied up the house.
I love
and just
that.
sat there playing video games. Mum was our rock. When you're missing your family's birthdays and Christmases and stuff like that, they had the most challenging ones.
You are blessed with 5 children. You've been a very busy man, Mr. Wright-Phillips.
Ian was massively important to me, especially due to my circumstances. He just refused to let us in the house until we did 50 kick-ups each.
Wow.
Once you are in the limelight, you're never out of it, so your life is no longer yours. But the one thing I did learn along the way was that...
What?
My aim when I walked on the pitch was, first of all, to give it all. And the second of all...
Is there any one particular moment that you would say was quite a defining moment that's taught you something about yourself?
The most negative point in my career, I think...
Today, I am extremely excited to welcome Shaun Wright-Phillips. As he journeyed from Manchester City's rising star to an England's international, Shaun carved out a legacy of breathtaking moments and sheer determination. Get ready to explore the drive and passion of a footballing icon. Welcome, Shaun.
Hi, Deepa.
Thanks for coming to my podcast.
No problem.
Have you ever had a singing bowl experience before?
It's the first for everything, isn't it?
What do you think?
I didn't expect it to get as loud as it did, to be honest.
You thought it was a dud one, didn't you?
It just got louder and louder.
Yeah.
But, so what do?
You just pick a word from the bowl and then we'll start the conversation. Influence.
Influence, yeah.
What would be really interesting to hear from you is that how your kind of footballing career first began, because technically you're not from a footballing background. We know that you were adopted when you were 3.
Yeah.
But where did the influence come from?
I don't know. I wouldn't necessarily say it didn't, because obviously we knew he played. He did take us to training at times and things like that. But I think it was more from where we grew up in South London. There wasn't a lot of other things to do. It was either play rounders, or pretty much football was all we had. So we always had loads of footballs, as you can imagine. And me and my brother just took them everywhere. If we got sent to the shop to get something for dinner, which needed to be made in half an hour, me and my brother wouldn't be back for an hour and a half because we'd figure out a game to play on the way to the shop. And I think it kind of just grew from then. And there was a lot of people in our area that all they wanted to do was play football as well. So we used to play a game called FA Knockouts, and it just moved on from there, really.
And when we say your brother, we're talking about Bradley here.
Yeah, my brother Bradley.
And was he as crazy about football then as you were?
Yeah, and we had our other brother Brett as well, and we all just played. And he was a bit lucky in terms of when he was coming up, there was Sunday league teams available, but when I was coming up, there wasn't nothing for our age group. So we had to basically get one of our friends' dad, we had to bribe him into being a manager, and then that became On the Road Boys. And then after On the Road Boys, it kind of merged with 10&B, who dad used to play for. My brother Bradley was there, and Brett obviously played for them as well. So they've had all of us there at some point or another. But that was fun football, where you just played no matter what you did, or the night before with your friends, you was still there the next day at the same time, because that was kind of your release, cleaning your muddy boots in your mum's bath, getting yelled at on a regular basis, and using that. They had a little tin called Chelsea dubbing we used to use to shine our boots with and everything, so they look pristine for the next Sunday.
How influential was Ian then through you growing up? Bearing in mind what you've just said in terms of there wasn't a lot to do there, but you obviously found this passion, didn't you?
Yeah, he's definitely been that person for us in respects of giving us an eyesight for an out of the area that we grew up in. But he's raised us pretty much a lot of the ways that I've raised my kids. never push them into it. You either fall in love with it or you don't, but I'm going to love you the same way. And the only thing I would say he did to me and my brother was there was a point where he just refused to let us in the house until we did 50 kick-ups each. And we was at his house and it was getting dark and stuff like that. So as a young kid, you
just did it.
You get nervous, don't you? You start panicking because you want to be in before it gets dark. But in general, he kind of left us to teach ourselves, which in many ways, I think it worked out better because there's certain things in football I don't think you can ever teach, and that's just raw ability. I think everything else at a later stage can be taught.
So, it's interesting you say that kind of Ian didn't do that for you. Who then inspired you when you recognized that you had this passion and this love for football? Who was your inspiration? I'm sure your dad was as well, but did you have other people?
When you have to ban your mum from coming to Sunday league games for wanting to fight somebody for tackling you, that's all the inspiration you need. So
I can imagine, actually. I can imagine Sharon doing that. Yeah,
that's literally all the inspiration I need now. But mum was our rock. She was there. She made sure she worked 2 jobs. She made everything happen for us. She came to as many games as she could, but we would always meet her back at our nan's for Sunday dinner and to watch Italian football because it was on a Sunday back then. So I'd say mum played a major role in me and my brother being successful because in many ways she made us resilient, especially mentally tough enough, ready to go out into the world.
That's amazing. I can imagine she would do that as well, though, having met her and been very honoured to spend a lot of time with her. Please, will you take another piece of paper?
Fatherhood.
Nice little segue there into fatherhood. Obviously, you are blessed with 5 children. You've been a very busy man, Mr. Wright-Phillips. Talk to me about what your childhood was, the influence of Ian as a father, which that's then kind of motivated you to become the father that you are to your children, because I know you're very close to them.
Yeah, I think Dad Ian was massively important to me, especially due to my circumstances. He come in and became, in many ways, a role model and the person I looked up to being better than, because as a dad, you always, in general, want your kids to turn out better than you, whether it be saving or whether it be success or whether it be helping in the community or charitable causes. You want them to go that extra step further than you. But the one thing I did learn along the way, which I wish I knew before I did it, was that as a parent, you want them to live a better lifestyle than you and say your parents lived before you. So I found that I was protecting them from all the wrong things. In general, I saw it as I took them away from the way I grew up because I was worried about everything that was happening on the street, which is perfectly fine. But then on the flip side, they then don't understand what is really, they don't understand what is really happening on the other side. And that I found that it allowed them to put themselves into situations which if they had knew about, they would have avoided. So I learned that it's a very fine line to giving them everything and in so many ways protecting them from a lot of things to letting them still know what's out there. And I think they got to about 8, 9, especially the older 2. And when they came to stay with me for the holidays, I used to just ship them to my mum's in South London for like 2 weeks. And they used to always say to me, "Why, Daddy?" I said, "Because this isn't just normal
real life. Yeah.
This is just a life that your dad managed to create through playing football. But you go and hang with your cousins in South London and you understand what is actually out there." And since I've done that, like, especially my daughter, the older daughter, she's thrived. She's basically the resemblance of my flipping mum, which I don't know how that works, but yeah, and it's worked in that.
And can you see Danae now kind of understanding those concepts that you introduced? Because obviously you are a grandpops, aren't you?
I was trying to hide it.
I think it's great. I think it's amazing. But, can you see Danae seeing the value in how you did teach them those really important kind of things about life?
In many ways, yes. In some ways, no. In the many ways aspects, like you want especially your first one to have everything, don't you? So you get all the name brands and stuff like that. And I had to say to her, "Trust me, don't walk down that path." She was just like, "Why?" I said, "Because in about 2 hours, that suit will be ruined. And then you'll be like, oh, it's a waste of money." And then I'll be like, "Yeah, see, I told you so." So she learned that. She learned that really quickly. And she's basically, honestly, I couldn't be more proud of her. It's something I didn't think she was ready for, but she's just taken everything in her stride, and I don't know how she manages to do it. She's studying for uni. She's raising a newborn baby. She's taking her theory lessons all at the same time, which is something I me myself couldn't compute, to being able to do so many things at once, but she's just flying at the minute.
You must take some credit for that as well, though, obviously, because you've been very active in both DiMaggio and Danae's life to see some of that stuff come to fruition.
No, I don't. As much as I would like to, I don't. I think I done my part in helping raise them, but I think they still have to walk their own paths. They still have to make mistakes and learn from it. And the way she's learned from her mistakes and the way she's changed her trajectory in the way she wants to go, for me, it's just been superb to watch.
That's amazing. Please take another piece of paper. And just whilst you do that, actually, so obviously there are some age differences with some of the kids. Obviously, Danae and DiMaggio were your eldest and then your youngest. So some of the stuff that you've just said, where you've actually taught them those life lessons, maybe a little bit later than you would have liked. Are you now implementing all those things early doors for the younger kids?
Yeah, definitely try. But the youngest one's just a little bit of a witch sometimes. So it doesn't
in the nicest possible way.
So it does. I love them all the same, but this one is the smartest one, I think, of all of my kids. I think she's the cleverest one and has been for a very...
Keeps you on your toes.
Yeah, she definitely keeps me on my toes.
What do you think as kind of part of fatherhood? Because obviously you had fatherhood introduced to you at a very young age because you had them young. Was there anything being a father that kind of taught you how to be a better footballer? Or was there anything in football that you had learned that helped you be a better father?
I would say from football, the other way around was the structure side of things. It's like being on time and when you're meant to normally eat and little things like that. I kind of, especially the first two, helping with that quickly because, like you said, I was a young dad, so I had to take a lot of elements from that. And the other side, not so much. More unity in respects of like when I was with that mum, it was a family dynamic. That was my team away from my team sort of thing. And that's kind of how the family dynamic worked at that time. And to this day, we're all still friends. We all get on, and our driving force is we need these kids to do well and be fine. Yeah. And that has just always been my focus.
Yeah. Amazing. What was the word that came up?
Sacrifices.
So I always think when we look at athletes or anybody that's in the limelight, we see a lot of, the glitz and the glamour and the nice cars and the big houses and the lifestyles, which is all very aspirational. The big thing for the Thinking Deeper podcast really is for people to get to understand and know what you also lost, which was a sacrifice for you that, yes, in the long game, it worked out and it bared fruit because you actually were an exceptional footballer. But it would be nice to see some of those, as a fan, would be nice to see some of the sacrifices that you had to make. Usain Bolt talks about sacrifice a lot. He says, his biggest thing in the success of his whole career was sacrifice, and it was the one thing that he really didn't like because he had to let go of a lot of things that he didn't want to. He wanted to live his life and be able to experience everything at the same time. So were there many sacrifices that you now looking back, and I know you don't do a lot of looking back, you're a very forward-facing person, but were there sacrifices that you made that you can like now look at in hindsight?
Loads, to be honest with you.
Thank God for that.
Some of them you can say in many ways were petty. But I think the first time I realized that, wow, I've actually chose football over another human being was when I was basically 14 and my first ever girlfriend. So it's obviously, speaking now, it sounds really petty and childish, but that was the first example of that. And she dumped me because she said, all I want to do is play football. I don't ever want to spend time to see her. And that was actually the case then. I didn't notice it, obviously, until I got older. And then a year and a half later, at 16, I have to leave home and move to Manchester. So to somewhere where no friends, don't know anybody. So that's my mum and my whole family, my brother, everyone gone. I had to basically start again. Then to realize as soon as I got to that first team era, then I realized no more Christmas, never going to be around for my mum's birthday, which I hardly ever was.
Yeah.
If I had kids, I was hardly ever around. Basically, that mum did everything if I was traveling. And I was lucky at the time that I was at, say, a Man City that wasn't that successful at the time, because when I moved to Chelsea, I actually said to Mourinho, you could have told me I wouldn't even have bothered to buy a house. I just spent my whole time in hotels. I think 3 times a week nearly we was in a hotel. So I was never at home. So a lot of people always mention the fact that they miss going out with their friends. Yeah, that's a sacrifice. But I think when you're missing your family's birthdays and Christmases and stuff like that, they're the most challenging ones. And I think the first Christmas I ever had properly as a family was 2016, 2017, when I moved to the MLS and played in the States.
And that's like pretty much towards the end of your career,
yeah,
right?
that was the last 3 years of my career. And that was the only time I really got to enjoy Christmas properly.
And was that your realization point at that point, or had you realized through the time that these are the sacrifices you're making, but it's going to, it's going to be worth it?
I didn't really pay too much attention to it at the time because I was doing something I love doing. But when I got to that point, and my brother was like, his wife was like, oh, we all got to dress in the same pajamas. Then I was like, what the fuck's this? Right, so all those things.
I can imagine Leanne saying
all those things I completely missed out of. I didn't really get, and I'm quite a stubborn person, so I just wasn't having none of it, was I? I was just like, no, I'm staying exactly how I am. Thank you very much. But yeah, like I look back and laugh at it now. And obviously it's helped because it's given my son a path, my daughter that plays football a path, my other son that's trying to get back into football, a path to go somewhere. And that's just because their dad did it. So in many ways, there's a lot of positives, but people have to forget there's so many negatives out there, because once you are in the limelight, you're never out of it. So your life is no longer yours. It's everybody else's, in fact. And if you don't give everybody the time, then everybody says you're arrogant. They don't sometimes appreciate that. It's not that you don't want to chat to them or hang with them or have a laugh with them. Just sometimes you just need that quiet little space.
Plus your personality is that you're an introvert, and actually you just like your own space, and you're a bit of a loner, really. So I can imagine it's like the worst case scenario for you. It's a really interesting point that you make, because, and when I spoke to Jermaine Defoe recently, I kind of asked him the same question, because you're from an era where social media and the opportunity for fans to have an opinion and for you to hear about it didn't really exist. And now, like through your career, then you've actually had to be exposed to people's opinions and what people think about you. And, if you had a shit game or if you had a good game or whatever, you were hearing about it. Do you think that your kids will be a lot more resilient just because they're already used to that, whereas you didn't really come from that and then you've had to transition into it? Do you think it'll be a different experience for them?
It would definitely be a different experience in terms of what you just said. But for me in general, like, we grew up with thick skin, I think, our generation. We know how to take abuse, and we know how to accept other people's opinions, whether we agree with it or not.
Yeah.
But in this world, everybody's entitled to their opinion. It's always going to be there. And in the football world, it's even worse.
It's even worse, yeah.
So it's something that just comes with the territory. But I think the kids just have to learn now exactly what I said. That you're going to have people that are different in opinion. That is life. The world don't push forward, in my opinion, if you don't have that difference in opinion, because what that person's opinion might help you think about something differently that you could possibly be doing wrong, that could make you a better person, player, or anything that you're doing in your job. So for me, sometimes with respect and calmness, then I would say certain opinions are good to listen to and understand. You don't have to reply to it. You just see it and that's it. But your manager's going to have an opinion on you. Like my son had it at Stoke, played well, broke through in the first team. New manager comes in and for whatever reason doesn't give him a sniff.
Yeah.
That's just his opinion. He thinks he's not ready, but the other manager did.
Yeah.
How did he deal with that? He kind of went into a shell. And I'm saying to him, like, yo, you got to handle your business. You're a young man now. Like, and once you're in that change room,
and this is part
your
of the game.
dad can't help you. Your mum can't help you. No, the only person that can help you is yourself. And you have your teammates there, but they're in a different position because those lot are playing. So the ones that are playing don't really understand what the ones that are not playing are really, really going through. although they say we're there for you, they're not really, but they're trying to be as supporters. So he has to handle his business.
What did you practically tell him to do then to kind of shift the mindset?
I said, man up, train hard for yourself. I said, if he isn't going to play you, you need to make sure you're ready for when that next person comes in. He might give him the option to play you and you're ready to go. Or when you go out on loan or wherever you move to next, you have to hit the ground running. Otherwise, you're not going to be where you need to be. And then it's a backward step. And that's basically what he did. He went to Belgium.
He is a very confident person though, isn't he, your son? Like, generally, I think I remember him saying he was probably better than your dad at one point in terms of finishing. And I just thought, that's, it's great to Marsha. You can be that way.
But that's what I've kind of taught him, I think, in football, especially as an attacking player, because you do go through spells where you don't score. You do go through spells where you're not playing that well, but your confidence can go. But I said, if you can maintain your confidence, then the chances are the times that you don't play well are going to be less than the times they would have been before. So I said to him, you kind of have to walk on a threshold, which I didn't have, I said to him, of arrogance and confidence. Because if you have that little bit of arrogance, then that keeps your confidence high because you're saying, I don't care who you are. This is what I'm going to do.
Yeah,
and
your belief.
I'm going to do it all the time sort of thing. Yeah. And that's where I've kind of tried to keep him at. And at the minute, he's there.
Great advice, because I think the self-belief, and again, it's a recurring theme that comes up in the podcast all the time. If you don't have the self-belief, I spoke to a fashion designer called Nadine Marabi, and she said I had nothing. I was on the street, had nothing, but I knew I was really good at what I did, and all I had was my self-belief. And she's dressing like some of the biggest names in the fashion world now, like globally, like she's incredible. It is all down to that self-belief, but it's a really interesting concept that you're introducing into this conversation around that level of arrogance. It's just that little bit that's needed, that's not going to be kind of overpowering, but just fuels the confidence when you need it, particularly when it might be a bit shaky. Let's have another word, Shawnee.
Defining moment.
I mean, you've had an incredible career. You've played across so many different levels. We already said in the introduction, from your kind of Man City stint to your international games to going into the MLS. Is there any one particular moment that you would say was quite a defining moment that's taught you something about yourself that you didn't really know?
Yes, and it would most probably be the most negative point in my career, especially as a teenager. I think that then was for me, in so many ways, make or break, but also it taught me, boy, you better be mentally strong for this journey because you don't know what's coming around the corner sort of thing. And it was when I was 16 at Nottingham Forest. It was Steve Wigley, Steve Hart. And they had told me I was getting a schoolboy form, so YTS at the time. So I left the training ground all cheerful. My brother was up at the time, I think, at the minute, and they wanted us to go on and meet the first team. Bradley, as he does, all out there, went on. Me, my little introvert self, stayed off the bus, didn't I? But in general, as time went on and it came to signing the contract, I left the training ground, went back on the train to London with Marlon Harewood. And then after saying that they're giving it, they soon swiped it away when I was on the train. So was basically them saying I was too small and wasn't good enough.
What?
So that was like the biggest reality check. After then, like I spoke to my mum. My mum just said, don't worry about it. She just said, I believe in you and you believe in you. So just get back on the bike, just as if you was a kid. Like if you fall off the bike, what does your parents tell you to do? Get back on and go again. Yeah. And that's basically what I did. And within like 24 hours, the scout that brought me there took me to Man City for like 7 days. That was another tough challenge because I ain't been away from my family for that long before. So I had to, especially my mum's cooking. So I had to go up to Manchester, and within that 7 days, the next thing I know, I was signing for City, and then it kind of just took off from there in like a year and a half. And even in that journey, there were, I wouldn't say little setbacks. I think it was a bit more me being keener, and then in many ways a little bit cocky as well with the ability that I had at that time in respects to when we was in the schoolboys and I was like playing under 18s and some of the bigger kids were playing under 19s and reserves. And I was like, well, I'm doing just as good or if not better and I'm scoring goals. Why can't I go? And it just never happened and everyone was moving and I was kind of like behind everybody. And then Joe Rowe just brought me over. And then after that, it was just done. I think I played in a testimonial game and I just went on a little mazy run at Old Trafford. I should have scored, to be fair. And this is where I had to take this little cocky side out of me again because I went on a little mazy run and got in a box and I was just in front of me and Fabian Barthez. And instead of just putting it in the back of the net, I tried to chip him on his line and he just caught it right in front of me. And the first thing Joe Roy and Willie Donachie said to me is, why didn't you just put it in the back of the net? I said, well, I did try, but and then after that, it just kind of just never looked back from that moment.
Wow. Thank you so much for sharing.
Resilience.
I mean, I've been really fortunate to be a close friend of yours for years, and I've watched you on your own journey of huge success to moments of big question marks, really, in terms of, where you were going. And the one thing that I'm not jealous about, but I just think, resilience is just oozes from you, because no matter where you are in your life, no matter what you're doing, that resilience seems to be so consistent.
Oh, I definitely blame that on my mum.
I can agree with that, actually. Yeah.
Honestly. Yeah, I definitely, my mum, in many ways, a lot of the friends that I grew up with that I still have around me, don't get to see them as much, but we're always in contact. But I think when you see your mum working 2 jobs, you go to school or you bunk school and then you get home, your mum's home and then she's going mad and then she's like, well, at least you could have tidied up the house.
I love that.
Sat there playing video games.
I don't care that you're at school, but you've left the house a mess.
Just seeing what my mum did. I think she was the mark and the icon for that. Like, she never asked her dad for anything. Even if he offered, she refused. She would rather work 2 jobs. We wouldn't take no money off her. We'd walk all the way over the bridge to our nan's to get our £2 and then we'd just keep saving so we could get Reebok Classic at the end of the week, which were like 10 or £20 in like a size 3 or 4 back then. And we used to just, way she'd live through her sort of thing. She made sure through the summer, all the family would be around, our friends could come around, they would have loads of games that we're going to play, set out ready for us to play them. And then when they weren't there, we had the bigger guys that we used to play a game called Letters. And there used to be like 8 of you, 8 of them. And you would have to come up with a word with like 8 letters involved.
Right.
And if they caught you, a group of them, they could kind of beat your letter out of you. So it was either like, boy, I ain't getting caught. I don't want no licks right now.
I understand that.
Yeah, just loads of little multiple things that we did growing up. You had to be resilient to play them. You had to not only enjoy them, but put up a fight whenever you did. You played FA knockouts. It's you versus like 10 people whenever you got the ball. So it's like, okay, how am I going to get to the goal? So you just try and make things happen. So it's just loads of a combination of things. But yeah, I'd say mum's the key for that one.
Amazing. Well, let's talk about Man City, because I think Man City's a really interesting part of your life. I feel like you kind of came out of Man City Academy. You then go to Chelsea. It's a very different experience at Chelsea. You come back to Man City and then I was watching back some of the videos of you scoring, 270 odd appearances, 46 goals. And for the amount of goals that I watched, and obviously, again, I was really fortunate, like an honorary family member in your family that I've been to some of the games, but just watching you play and score, there's nothing that quite describes what your face is like. Can you describe what that feeling is?
No. It's weird. You actually, I didn't even know I've scored 46 goals. I just want to blur. No, honestly, it's all a blur. For me, for somebody that don't, my aim when I walked on the pitch was, first of all, was to give all. And the second of all was to give the fans something to cheer and get excited about.
Yeah, and they loved you.
And that
absolutely loved you.
Was my motto to football. And then creating chances. Maybe it should have been the other way around. It should have been creating chances. But that's how it was. I just liked entertaining people. And I felt like if I entertain, I'm doing something right. So that means I'm going past somebody or I'm having a shot or I'm creating a chance. So it kind of all just meshed into ones. Because sometimes I was so tired on the pitch, but as soon as somebody passed the ball to me at Manchester, everybody stood up. So it was just like, okay, well, why not? Let's try and make something happen. And that's kind of, especially my first spell at sea, that's kind of the way I played literally all the time. You could have given me the ball anywhere and I would have just, like FA knockouts, would have just tried to get close to that goal as I possibly can. If I can't shoot, then I have to give it to somebody else to do that part for me. Yeah. And that's basically the motto. And I think when I left City then and went to Chelsea, football was completely different. It was played a completely different way. I was no longer, say, the big fish at a club. I was now a big fish, but not as big as some of the fish that are kind of there at Chelsea who were doing stuff. So I wasn't getting the ball that quickly. That was the first thing I had to get used to. So when the ball did come, there was always a man tighter to me. And that took me a while there. But I think in many ways, Mourinho made me a better all-round footballer in terms of he brought my football IQ up, which in many ways changed the way I also played as well. So when people want to see the Shaun that was running, dribbling for everybody, that wasn't really there anymore because my game had changed so much to adapt to the way Chelsea played. Because sometimes I was playing in that midfield area, which doesn't always need a dribbler. It needs more of a runner or a tackler or somebody that can execute passes. And I had to implement that into my game. And then when I come back to City, I had a little bit of both. Right. I didn't dribble as much, but I did when I had the chance to. And then I remember loads of comments were going around, he's lost it. Mourinho took his dribbling out of him, where effectively he didn't. He made me a better player. And for me personally, he made me prepared to play football in, say, today's era. Yeah. Where now I think, well, nobody's running that much. Like I remember having to defend like way back there and then run all the way up there. Well, that doesn't happen anymore. No. Football's completely different. So to some players, especially that played under Mourinho, I think Jermaine Defoe is one of these players that they could play in this world of football. Yeah. Well, I remember because I asked you years ago who your favourite kind of manager was, and you said it was Mourinho. But today I'm going to ask you who would be a manager that you would have liked to have played under that you didn't get a chance to play under. Pep Guardiola. Just defend from the front, innit? Yeah. That's perfect. I don't need to run all the way back. Yeah, I don't need to run all the way back there. But no, just the way he's evolved football. I just think you have to take your hat off for him. Don't get me wrong. Klopp would have been second on my list, but like Pep, definitely. They just have a different presence as well. The way he has the attackers positioned in goal scoring opportunities all the time. Like I just would have loved it. Thank you so much. It's been amazing. I mean, you know, the podcast kind of gave birth to help people on their journeys of self-discovery. And for me, the most beautiful thing is that, you know, even my nephews and nieces, you know, Taj, Kaylin, Sienna, Neve, they all watch my podcast. So the fact that you, and some of them are Man City fans, by the way, like huge Man City fans. So they are going to absolutely love this. But just the fact that you're able to share those golden nuggets and the wisdom and that they can apply that, not just, you know, they may never play football, but the fact that they can use it in life generally on their journeys, I think is amazing. And I'm really grateful that you shared all those amazing points for us. Thank you so much. No problem, Deep. If you guys have watched the episode and you haven't subscribed, please do so. You'll get notifications when new interviews drop. Please like, please comment. If you've got questions, then please drop them in the comments below. And we need to grow this tribe. So if you can share this episode or any of the others that you think somebody might be interested in watching, then please do so. It would really help. Thank you so much.